Okay, yeah, so our today's topic is about multi-document question and answering. So Will actually asked a good question before. His question is actually, why are we doing this, right? For multi-document Q&A. So for Q&A, you would know that we are still building a chatbot application to use LLM. So it's not like those fraud detection or time series prediction that we were talking about. Um, yeah, so for the Q&A, and we know that, usually for chatbot, like what William is talking about, in his prototype that, use like in context learning or the RAG architecture for people to actually use your own corporate proprietary data to build your knowledge base, right? A vector store first, and then to query that knowledge base that you indexed on your corporate data to answer, users' questions. And a lot of the times, then, you know, you have like multiple different documents, and to answer, let's say, a very complicated question, then how can you assure that your model or your chatbot actually exhausted all the information resources to be able to answer that question in a more holistic and complete format, right? So therefore today's topic is to show how you can actually fine tune the pre-trained model. So that's also the question that William asked earlier, that why is it always pre-trained model? Actually, before, in the transfer learning world, we people always call it pre-trained model, and then you do fine tuning or transfer learning on pre-trained model. But for some reason, in the large language model terminology world, people are now more and more calling it the foundation model. So far, we know a few foundation model, for example, the ChatGPT 3, uh, no, GPT-3 and GPT 3.5, and now GPT-4. And now there are also open source model coming out, because we know all the GPT-4 models, they're not open source. So OpenAI did not actually release the model specifics. So therefore, it's hard to know, what is kind of like a black box. But right now, a very hot startup from France. So it's a French company startup. I think they actually started maybe just only like half a, not half, yeah, half a year ago. It's called Mistral AI. So they created this open source model called Mistral 7B. So this open source model, they can actually do a lot of things already, and it's open source. So therefore, you can just take it and do all you want to customize it to like do anything that you want to play with it. So that's another large language model, foundation model that you can play with. But for today, we are actually going to show how we can use OpenAI library to fine tune GPT 3.5 model. So, as we discussed at the beginning of our session, so most of the use cases today are still using prompt engineering to just query the GPT models, but rarely people actually do fine tuning. Mostly is because limited by the compute resources that's available to fine tune these large models. But today, since I have the Google Colab Pro, so I can show, like how you can actually fine tune large language models using OpenAI APIs. Okay, just to also set the context straight. So our problem definition for today is we want to be able to build a model through fine tuning to let it be able to answer any given question reasoning across multiple different um, or all relevant documents in order to be able to answer a question complete. Okay, so that's to answer the question, why the need for multi-document Q&A, right? So it's that, some questions, it just has the nature that it require the model to answer not just from one document and just give up. Okay, so I found this document, to address your question, but it can actually enumerate, right, or iterate through different documents in order to be able to give a complete answer. So this type of data set, open source data set that you could obtain is something called IIRC data set. So this data set contains contains all the questions that would you know, need the model to iterate over different documents too. It's not just like, the model can answer just from one document for that question. So that's the data set that has that. And and another one is the method that we will be using to build this model is through fine tuning. So how do we achieve this, right? So we will fine tune the foundation model, right? And then okay, so then we will see what are the steps to get us there for to fine tune the foundation model for multi-document Q&A. So we know that, we are not just doing in context learning now by just throwing prompt questions to the model, but now we actually need to retrain the model or fine tune the model. So we're gonna give just like a big picture or introduction for that. So we know that, for building all type of machine learning model, not even deep learning model, just like any traditional machine learning model, the very first thing that especially for for natural language processing, since it's non-structured data, it's text-based. So the very first number one thing that everyone needs to do is tokenization, right? Even, yeah, yeah, yeah. Unless like you are working on a structured SQL table type of data, you would need tokenization. So the library that you see that you should download for this is called Tick Token. I don't know why they actually make that name, but yeah, I don't like TikTok, but yeah, but they just kind of, maybe for people to remember it. So the reason is that we actually in our, I think it was actually our very first session of our series that we actually talked about the tokenization method for large language model. And also we also talked about several special features that define large language model to be different from traditional deep learning model. One of them being the way that they tokenize things. So yeah, so they come up with this like kind of like new way of doing tokenization is pairwise. So they actually not just it's not like character level token. We know that there are like in previous NLP models there are word-based tokenization, and then there are character level tokenization. But this way it actually do like like a bottom up clustering, a bottom up clustering method to come up with the optimal sub token pairs. So they actually have like a whole reasoning why that method is ideal for a large language model. I believe, yeah, we covered it in our first session, our channel. And yeah, and then I guess it's also like if you're curious, you can go review that. But anyway, so this is the library that has that method TID token, and after you do you use this library for tokenization, then the second step you need to do is actually prepare the training data set for this for retraining this model, right? So we know that also in any machine learning model, after the data cleaning or whatever noise cleaning or whatever, you need to do a training set. You need to have training set. You need to have testing set. You have to have validation set, right? So um, because what we are doing today is fine tuning the model. So it's actually a supervised training, supervised retraining. So therefore, we would have X and Y's in to prepare our training data set. So we will see further how this data set is prepared. So you see that each training set for this model retraining, it contains three components. So because it's a Q&A machine, so obviously it would have the question. So right, so one question, and also a list of multiple document JSON objects. So in the Python language, we know that JSON objects pretty much just means dictionaries, right? The data structure. So and then also one answer. So that way, that answer will serve the supervised learning purpose, right? For retraining. So here's an example how this training, how this one record of this training set will look like. So you see that the whole thing pretty much is JSON object, right? Dictionary. So you have this in this bigger JSON object. So you would have, so it's all key value pairs, right? So you have the question, and then the keys, and then the documents. You see that the documents, because it's multiple documents, right? So this multiple documents then sit inside a list of dictionaries, right? Then yeah, so and then the one document elements in this list is composed by a title of the document and also the content of the document. So I guess the content is just the body of the document, right? So here it's just a simple example, which is short sentences or paragraphs to represent the document. But in reality, it could be like a huge, super long strings, like a giant strings, right? Um, Yeah, and then so that's the multiple document list. And then the final key is the answer, right? So you can take a look at, like, say, just to have some intuitive idea sense. So this question is, how old was King George III when his seventh son was born, right? And then so we see that there are three relevant documents to actually address this question. So the first one, the first one says, this whatever guy, he is the seventh son of King George III, right? So th- just by this single document, it wouldn't be able to answer the question about the age of King George III. The only information this document contains